Hello everyone. Today we will study about right, more specifically fundamental right and DPSP, which is described in right in the Indian Constitution, Chapter 2, Class 11, Indian Constitution at Work. So we will study about fundamental right. So fundamental right is the Magna Carta of Constitution. Magna Carta of Constitution, which is described in Part third of Indian Constitutions from Article 12 to 35. Fundamental right is derived from USA, which act as a limitation, which act as a limitation on tyranny of plenary, plenary of the executive, action of the executive, and arbitrary laws of the legislature. Fundamental right is the fundamental law of land, which is important for all-round development of the individual. It im- it applies both. It applies. It applies on citizens, foreigner, corporation, companies, etc. Fundamental right is not absolute. You can enjoy the fundamental in a qualified way. Means there is a reasonable restrictions by the government to protects the other person's fundamental right. So fundamental right is not absolute but qualified. But qualified. It is defended and protected by Supreme Court. It is justiciable and enforceable by the court. Fundamental right act as a negative act, negative law against state or government. So, so we will study about importance of right. So, first, first importance, right protect individuals from state access because जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स हैं जो फंडामेंटल राइट है एक्ट एज अ लिमिटेशन ऑन होम ऑन स्टेट government etc essential for human dignity and freedom. So freedom, there is a freedom of speech हो गया, expression हो गया, फिर essential for humanity. Fundamental right is essentials for the development of all round development of individuals. That's why it is essential for human dignity and freedom. It is justiciable by the Supreme Court of India and enforceable by the court, by both, means by both Supreme Court and High Courts. It is described in Part 3 of the Indian Constitution from Articles 12 to 35. So there is six fundamental right, but originally it is seven fundamental right. Seven fundamental rights, which is right to property, in Article 31. In Article 31, so in 1978, Right to Property Act was deleted through 44th Constitutional Amendment Act and added to the Article 300A of the Indian Constitution, which is called constitutional right or legal right. So we will study about right to equality. So before we study right to equality, there is a in Article 12 there is a definition of a state. Definition of state. Definition of state, like executive, legislature, or at the central and the state level, local bodies, all are the state. The companies who work for a government or who work for a government is also included in state. And Article 13 says that any law any law which is inconsistent with fundamental right, any law that is inconsistent with fundamental right, inconsistent with fundamental right, that law is not valid and unconstitutional. So in Article 14 we study about equality before law. What is equality before land law? And in Article 14 we will study about equality before law and equal protection of law. Equal protection of law. So equality before law is element of rule of law, is the element of rule of law. Rule of law is the basic structure, is the basic feature of the constitution. So that's it. So, and Article 15 we will study about prohibition of discrimination in any form. We prohibit fundamental right prohibit the discrimination or in any form. In Article 16 we will study about equality of opportunity in public employment, abolition of untouchability according to Article 30, according to Article 17 there is a abolition of untouchability in any form that is prohibited by the Indian Constitution. So we will study this article in detail in another videos. So now we will study about DPSP, directive principle of state policy. So directive principle of state policy, which is described in part 4 of the Indian Constitution from Article 36 to 51. So there is a so this is the positive act or positive article positive article for the state, positive article for the state. It is the moral and political sanction. It is the moral and political sanction. It required legal backing for its implementation. It is not automatically enforced. Not automatically enforced. It is not justiciable. It is not justiciable. So DPSP are basically divided in three parts, which is first one is first one is socialist principle, more particular democratic socialist state, which mentions about social and economic justice. And another one is Gandhian principle, which is based on Gandhian ideology, which is based on Gandhian ideology. Example like village panchayat is the center of power, cottage industries, cottage industry. And the third one is we will talk about liberal intellectual. थर्ड क्या है हमारा? लिबरल इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रिंसिपल. Liberal intellectual principle, which is talk about liberalism, which is based on liberalism. So that's the thing about DPSP. What is the difference between fundamental right and डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल ऑफ स्टेट पॉलिसी की डिफरेंसेस क्या है? देखिए, फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो है वो निगेटिव ड्यूटीज है ऑन स्टेट, जो कि आप नहीं वॉयलेट कर सकते हैं, वॉयलेट नहीं कर सकते हैं. डीपीएसपी एक पॉजिटिव ड्यूटीज है स्टेट में, जिसके मतलब पॉजिटिव ड्यूटीज जो कि एक डायरेक्टिव दिया गया है स्टेट को कि आप इन फ्यूचर आप इसे यूज करें. फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो है इन्फोर्सिएबल है बाय द कोर्ट, डीपीएसपी नहीं है. क्यों नहीं है? क्योंकि अभी ये एक्ट नहीं बना है, ये इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हुआ है, इसलिए. बोथ टुगेदर इंश्योर्ड होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट. सो होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट, ह्यूमन ह्यूमन इंडिविजुअल के लिए ये दोनों जरूरत है.